Welcome everybody to Whitaker MMA DFS podcast. I'm your host Jeff, aka Wigspitter. You can find me on Twitter at JEFPO. Give me a follow. I post occasionally. You could also hit me up in the premium chat on Whitaker.com. Shameless plug. Event passes for MMA are only $4.99. That's less than a Happy Meal or a value meal, whatever you want to call it. But you'll gain access to the premium chat, the premium article, the live stream that we have before the event. You'll also have access to the biggest probability odds that I have calculated out. Who's going to be GPP and cash viable. But let's just go ahead and get right into the action. The first fight on the Fight Pass early prelims, we have Mike Santiago versus Dan EJ. Both these guys they have a grappling base. Santiago's a little more aggressive. He has a little bit more of a pressure style. EJ, in his last fight against Dan Arce, he sort of struggled. Santiago, I think, is going to be the bigger fighter in there. I think Santiago might have more power. I think he might have the more one-punch power. I think EJ has a little bit more of, Dan EJ has a little bit more of the submission game. It's possible that this could turn into a grappling match. There could be some scrambles. Both these guys trying to take each other down, both working their way back up. From salary perspective, Mike Santiago's salary is $7,900. Dan EJ's $8,300. At the time of this recording, let's see, Dan EJ odds according to 5 Dimes. He's a minus 135 favorite. Santiago's a plus 115. For roster build, though, the salaries are sort of middle of the road with. I think this fight could go to decision. I don't really see it scoring well. EJ isn't necessarily a very active fighter, or at least he didn't really look it when he was fighting Dan Arce. So I'd almost want to go with the underdog here, but I mean the salary doesn't necessarily give you too much flexibility when you're building your roster. But I'm gonna have to dive a little more into it. But I think I'm gonna go with Santiago in this fight over Dan EJ. And on the next fight we have Clay Guida versus Charles de Bronx Oliveira. Clay Guida's salary is $7,800. He's a 140 underdog. De Bronx coming in on short notice is $8,400 salary. Is a minus 160 favorite. This is going to be an interesting fight because Clay Guida has cardio for days and Oliveira tends to gas as the fight goes on. Oliveira he's a sub expert. Ever since Clay Guida has gone to Team Alpha Male, his striking has improved. His head movement isn't as frenetic. I mean, he used to do that crazy, just all over the place. I mean, he was just a madman when he was in the cage. But I see Clay Guida probably pushing De Bronx early, or not. I'm sorry. Let me take that back. I see Clay Guida probably fighting at distance. Well, Charles Oliveira has some decent, solid striking. I could see Guida probably pushing right at the end of the round for a takedown. Hopefully not too early, because then he doesn't want to get caught in the guillotine or rear naked if Oliveira could transition to the back. From a DFS standpoint, both these guys' salaries are similar to EJ and Santiago, where it's sort of like you have to figure out who's who has the higher upside? Is Oliveira's gas tank going to empty before he can get to Guida? Is Guida going to be able to keep distance and just be able to grind Oliveira out? I see that happening. I could see Clay Guida possibly landing multiple takedowns, just having that pressure type wrestling and work from the top and go from there. But this is just first look. DFS point of views. There's nothing set in stone. But I like Guida in this fight. Now going on to the next fight, we have the number 1 ranked 125 pound going up against the number 5 ranked 125 pound fighters. And I get it. These guys don't necessarily finish their fights too often. Majority of their fights go to decision. But having them buried below the FS1 prelims, or even I'm not saying this is necessarily a main card fight, but Pettis' fighting style is sort of it's not very exciting. Benavidez, he's a pressure wrestler. He's coming off of ACL surgery, I believe, where he's been sidelined for like 16 months. But he has takedown upside, and if you look at Sergio Pettis' last fight against Cejudo, he got taken down a couple of times. If you look at his fight record in general, he's been taken down at least once per fight. I think Benavidez is going to be able to land multiple takedowns and just grind them for 3 rounds. I like Benavidez in this fight. Benavidez' salary is $9,000. Pettis' salary is $7,200. I think if Benavidez can land multiple takedowns and just probably a couple transitions, Pettis is going to be strong enough to probably work his way back up to his feet early in the fight. But I think later into the later rounds, he's probably going to get tired, and Benavidez is just going to work him and just grind him into the mat with that aggressive grappling. Hopefully, he's able to. He's recovered well from the ACL surgery he has, and there's no complications during the match. But I like Joseph Benavidez in this fight. He probably could be safe for cash, just because of the multiple takedowns. In cash, you can get away with a loss. I've seen some people cash with 2 losses in their lineups, but the cash line's usually lower. But for a GPP standpoint, at 9,000, possibly going to a decision, he'd have to land 4 to 5 takedowns, have the same amount of transitions with a solid amount of striking to pay off that salary. Might be a little risky in a GPP. He could be lower owned of the top salary guys, but yeah, I like Joe B in cash at least. Sergio, even in wins, I think all of his fights go to decision, so he's going to score right around that 70 point. If he's able to keep distance and just stuff the takedowns, he will, and then work for if he is able to steal the decision. It's possible that he's going to pay off his salary at $7,200, but don't expect like an 85, 90, or 100 point explosion from him, because he's just not that type of fighter. He fights well from distance. He has solid kicks. Yeah, that's that fight. Moving on to the last fight of the FS1 prelims, we have Rashad Evans going up against Anthony Smith. Man, sugar Rashad Evans. If this fight was a few years ago, you'd definitely have to side with Rashad Evans, but he's aging. I believe there was an interview he had where he was he had mentioned, I'm not sure if it was with one of the Fox Sports analysts, but he said something like he didn't want to get knocked out anymore, or he doesn't like to get hit to get knocked out anymore, or something like that. And I think I can't remember who he's filming a movie with, or he was in a movie with somebody during his training camp of some sort. But I think he's thinking beyond the cage. Anthony Smith is moving up in weight from 185 to 205, so I believe he was having a hard time cutting weight. So this is going to be more of a natural weight for him. He was having gas issues. His cardio was lacking at 185 just because I think the weight cut. He's coming off of a horrible loss as well. But Anthony Smith's salary is 9,200. He's a minus 330 favorite. Rashad Evans is 7,000 salary, and he's a 270 underdog. Now, if Rashad can somehow channel that old school Sugar Rashad Evans, where he was just landing takedowns on guys, just grinding them, and just ground and pounding them, and just working his opponents over, that 7,000 salary is definitely viable for anything, cash, GPP. The only thing that concerns me about Rashad Evans is he seems very tentative in his last few fights, like he doesn't want to pull the trigger, or if he's just trying to figure out how to fight smarter, changing his fighting style. Anthony Smith is one of those guys where he's sort of a slow starter as well, but I think he's gonna have the edge, the age, and then just with Rashad Evans' lack of activity, I think he's gonna probably pull it off. At that salary though, at 9,200, he's gonna need a finish, and Rashad Evans has showed he's been able to be finished, but I don't know, man. This fight card's a little awkward because there's some fights that shouldn't be on the main, or not necessarily shouldn't be on the main, but are just questionable on why they're so high up in the card. But whatever. But yeah, I like Anthony Smith. It's just a little risky. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to pay off his salary at 9,200. He would need an early finish with multiple strikes. Moving on to the first fight of the FS1 prelims, we have Rashad Coulter going up against Chris De La Rocha. Both these guys are in the same. I don't know, man. I don't understand how these guys are on the FS1 prelims. Coulter, he's 0-2 in the UFC. He does have knockout power. He has a boxing base. De La Rocha, he's a wrestler / boxer. His striking seems average. His cardio is suspect. Both these guys 0-2. Their salaries, Rashad Coulter is 8,700. He's a minus 175 favorite. Chris De La Rocha is 7,500, and he's a 155 underdog. I mean, these are heavyweights, so if you think about the match, just take away who these guys are and just look at their physical attributes. Rashad Coulter is a little bit more athletic. He's going to be faster in there. De La Rocha is going to be slower. He seems a little clunky with his movement. So I'm going to lead. I mean, it's sort of hard to pick, but I'm gonna leave Rashad Coulter at 8,700 for a GPP. De La Rocha, I just think he's not necessarily a UFC level talent. Heavyweight division is sort of rough, so I think that's the only reason why they're keeping him around. But I like Rashad Coulter for GPPs and to take the win. Moving on to the next fight, we have Ricardo Lamas going up against Mirsad Bektic. This is a very intriguing fight. I was surprised that this wasn't on the main card. I understand Lamas is coming off of a horrible knockout loss from Josh Emmett. Nobody saw that coming except a handful of people. Predicted Lamas losing that fight, but Backtick is up and coming hot prospect. He's very athletic. He has upside in takedowns, ground and pound. He does have a slight submission upside. Lamas is older, coming off of, like I said, he's coming off of a bad loss to Josh Emmett. He has takedown upside. He does have submission ability. So that's one thing Backtick's going to have to watch out for. Backtick's salary is $8,800. He's a minus 230 favorite. Lamas is $7,400, and he's a 190 underdog. Honestly, I'd be willing to take, in a GPP, I'd be willing to take Ricardo Lamas, just because he's at 7,400. He gives you upside for possible submission, possible KO. Even if he takes it to decision, it's possibly a decent amount of strikes that will be landed. And if he's able to squeak it out, it's definitely viable that he could pay off his salary, score in the 80 point range, 85 point range at 7,400. That's fairly workable when it comes to your climbing the ranks, because you're going to have to, in order to get some of these higher priced guys, some of these heavier favorites, you're going to have to pick your poison when it comes to which of these underdogs you're going to want to take. But I like Mirsad Bektic to pull off the win. I could possibly see another, like a walk-off KO similar to like what Josh Emmett did. Lamas's head movement just seems like it's starting to slow down, so I like Backtick in this fight. Moving on to the next fights, we have Claudio Guida versus Carlos Esparza. Now this is going to be another fight that I like. I think this is a stackable fight for cash. Claudio Guida and Carlos Esparza, I think this is going to go to decision. Guida is probably going to land multiple takedowns, have solid amount of strikes. Esparza is a very durable fighter. I think she's going to be able to... she's probably going to take a lot of damage. I take that back. Maybe not stackable in cash, but I think Esparza could be one of those fighters if you wanted to use in cash to just open up a lot of possibilities when it comes to your roster build. Because her salary is only $6,800. She's a $425 underdog. Guida's salary is $9,400. She's the highest salary on the slate, and she's a minus 550 favorite. Yeah, if you were to stack this in cash, I mean, I wouldn't hate that, but it's definitely a viable option. If you look at Carlos Esparza's fight logs, even in losses, she scores like 45 to 50 points, and majority of her fights go to decision. And I think Guida is definitely going to win this fight. She's going to probably have a solid advantage on the feet. Esparza isn't necessarily as active as she should be. Let's see, what else do I got here for notes? Yeah, she's Esparza's a low volume striker. Yeah, I mean, she's pretty much a grappler. And I think both of them are going to put on a decent little show on the FS1 prelims. Moving on to the next fight, Curtis Blades versus Alistair Overeem. Curtis Blades' salary is $8,500. He's a minus 175 favorite going up against Overeem. $7,700 salary, and he's a 155 underdog. Now, I was looking back at his record, and it seems like after every KO loss that he has, or TKO loss he has, he comes back with a win. So I wouldn't be surprised if Overeem was able to weasel out a decision and just grind out the fight and push Blades into the deep waters. But I don't know, man. Blades just seems like he's evolving into a very good fighter. His fighting style is the way he's hit the fight plan that he's coming into these fights with is really good. Overeem has been shown that he's chinny. He is. That's one of the things that one of his weaknesses is he can get knocked out. He is coming off of a very bad loss by the hands of Francis Ngannou. But yeah, Curtis Blades has takedown upside. He doesn't have very good takedown defense himself, so wouldn't be surprised if Overeem decides to work his way into the clinch and possibly work for a trip takedown, and then just work for a ground and pound or possibly a submission, which is highly possible. This is sort of a coin toss for me. For a GPP standpoint, I like Overeem. Curtis Blades does have takedown upside. Could land multiple takedowns. And if he's able to get that one punch KO early, he's definitely going to pay off his salary at 8,500. He'll score anywhere between 90 and 105 points, or 95 and 110 points, depending on if it's the first or second round KO. But if it goes to the decision, man, it's possible Overeem could grind it out, but he's going to have to avoid that knockout. But I like it. I like them both. Moving on to the first fight of the main card is CM Punk going up against Mike the Truth Jackson. Now, both these guys are 0-1. One's a photographer, one's a former WWE character. CM Punk has beaten some pretty respectable guys, man. He's beaten some pretty big guys. John Cena. I'm just kidding. I'm not going to go into that. But I don't understand why this fight's on the main card. I don't understand it, but whatever. I think CM Punk should be he should be fighting his way through the regional scene right now, as opposed to being in the UFC fighting on the main event. But that's another day, another discussion. It's getting right into it. Mike Jackson's salary is 8,600, and he's a minus 230 favorite. CM Punk is 7,600, and he's a 190 underdog. Now, Jackson supposedly is a boxer. I think he had 4 wins, 4 wins in his amateur career, or something like that. CM Punk is, I mean, he's fairly new to mixed martial arts, and I mean, a lot of people are saying that his jiu-jitsu has improved. But, I mean, you can't excel in jiu-jitsu in a year and a half, 2 years. I mean, that's a huge task to undertake. I mean, there's so much to learn mentally, physically. I don't know. I don't see how CM Punk really has. I mean, unless Mike Jackson is that horrible, I don't see CM Punk winning this fight. But I don't know. I'm actually not very interested in this fight from a DFS standpoint. To me, neither guy has the upside to roster. I mean, you roster CM Punk and he gets you 5 points at 7,600, you're going to be extremely pissed. If you roster Mike Jackson at 8,600 and he squeaks out a decision and wins has like 40 or 50 points, I mean, you're going to be pissed either way. I'm probably gonna fade this fight. I mean, if somebody beats me with a Michael Jackson or a CM Punk line, I'll take my hat. I'll tip my cap to you because I'm not gonna do it. That's just some things. Friends don't let friends roster CM Punk or Mike Jackson in DFS. That's just horrible shit. Moving on to the next fight, Andre Arlovsky versus Tai Tuivasa. Now, Arlovsky's credit, ever since that pretty bad pad loss he had, he's been changing. He's been evolving his game. He's more patient in his striking. He's not as aggressive. He fights well from distance. Tuivasa, he's undefeated right now. All his fights have been finished by knockout. Arlovsky has shown that he's been knocked out, but I think he's going to have to come in here with a very smart game plan. He's going to probably want to fight well from distance. He's not going to want to get in the clinch because once Tuivasa gets within range, it's a possibility he's just going to get that Muay Thai clinch and then just wail away with some dirty boxing. And if that happens, Orlovsky could possibly go to sleep. But you can't really count out Orlovsky, man. I mean, he's one of those guys where ever since he's reinvented himself basically. Tuivasa's salary is 9,300. He's a minus 275 favorite going up against Arlovsky. He's 6,900 and he's a 235 underdog. I definitely like Tuivasa to win this fight, but I think there is risk because I think Arlovsky is going to be a huge step up in this is a huge step up in talent. He's fought some not necessarily low level guys, but I mean he's beat guys like Rashad Coulter and Cyril Asker. Nowhere near Andre Arlovsky. Arlovsky is very athletic, smart when he's in the cage, except for that one time when he tried to go for a flying knee and Fedor got him with the straight right to knock him out. But yeah, it's gonna be. I think this is gonna be an interesting fight. Arlovsky at 6,900, I definitely could take a flyer on that because if he's able to weasel this fight out into a decision, and just tire Tuivasa out and just grind him because Tuivasa cuts down to the max weight of 265, so he's going to be a huge man. Arlovsky is usually around 240 when he weighs in, so it's going to be interesting. This is a huge test for Tuivasa, but I think he's going to be able to land one of those power shots or a multitude of power shots and be able to take Arlovsky out. Moving on to the next fight is Holly Holm and Megan Anderson. This is going to be a solid scrap, man. Megan Anderson's she's 6 foot tall. She's going to be the taller fighter in the cage. She's going to have a little bit of a longer reach. Holly Holm's going to probably want to fight from distance. I think this turns into a striking battle. I think both these ladies are going to have a decent amount of strikes. Megan Anderson's salary is 7,300. She's a 195 underdog. Holly Holm's salary 8,900 and minus 235 favorite. Now, if this goes to decision, it's possible that Holly Holmes could pay off her salary at 8,900. I just think it's possible that she just is able to, if she's able to pull the trigger. She looked a little tentative in her last fight, but who doesn't against Cyborg? I mean, she threw everything she had at Cyborg and the kitchen sink. And it wasn't enough. But I like Holly Holm in this fight. At 8,900, I don't see it viable. I think she's more of a cash play as opposed to a GPP play. Megan Anderson doesn't. She seems fairly durable. She's a well-rounded fighter. So it's possible that she could pull off the upset at 7,300. Possibly worth a GPP flyer, but I like Holly Holm in this fight. I think she's more of a cash play than a GPP play. Now moving on to the next fight. Now this fight is going to be amazing. Colby Covington and Rafael dos Santos. I don't know, man. I think Colby, he's one of those guys that you just can't count him out. Colby Covington's salary is $8,000. He's a minus 110 favorite at the time of this recording. RDA is 8,200 salary. He's a minus 110 favorite as well. So it's basically a pick 'em according to Vegas. But from a DFS standpoint, this is something. Both these guys are solid grapplers. Both these guys have submission ability. Both these guys have striking ability. Both these guys have takedowns. So it's basically DFS gold. You can definitely, if you want to pick your side and then just ride with it, and then pick a line or build your lineup around each guy, that's definitely where you can do that as well. I just think this is going to be a grindy fight. If it does go to decision, I mean, this could be another fight that you could stack in cash. Another stackable fight in cash that would be fairly intriguing at 8,000 and 8,200. Should have decent output striking wise, but it's possible that either of these guys could finish the other. But yeah, I think you can make a case for either fighter, for Colby Covington or RDA. But I hate myself for saying this. I'm going to go out on a limb and say Colby Covington's going to win this fight by decision. Moving on to the last fight is Robert Whittaker and Yoel Romero. Robert Whittaker's salary is 9,100. He's minus 240 favorite. Yoel Romero 7,100, and he's a 200 underdog. I'll be honest with you. I like Yoel Romero as an underdog play for GPPs. I like Yoel Romero for cash plays at 7,100. Definitely worth it. At 9,100 for Whittaker, coming off of an injury, fighting in front of his hometown, he's probably going to want to put on a show. It's one of those things where you're going to have to, at 9,100, he's going to need an abnormal amount of strikes and just keep striking in order to pay off that salary at 9,100 for it. I mean, it is a 5-round fight, so I definitely like it. But yeah, I think Robert Whittaker is probably going to pull this fight off. When it comes to lineup building, I think he's definitely viable for cash. I think it's going to be slightly risky for GPP. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to get up into that 120 point range or like Gregor Gillespie did, but yeah. That's the first look preview for UFC 225 for DraftKings DFS. If you're not already a subscriber, please hit the subscribe button. Hit the like button. If you're following us on Twitter, make sure you. If you're not following us on Twitter, make sure you follow us at wise_take. Follow me at JEFPO. If you're listening to this on Podbean or iTunes, make sure you leave us those 5-star reviews. We really appreciate you listening to us. Listening to me, anyways, talking about MMA and DFS. It's one of my true loves outside of barbecuing and family. It's one of the things I just love doing. You can always hit me up on Twitter. I can answer your questions, or if you just want to chop it up about MMA, I'm down for that too. But also, if you're not a Wisestake subscriber, head on over to wisestake.com. You can pick up a UFC 225 event pass for $4.99. You'll definitely make that back in your first event. I mean, you go in and I'll tell you exactly which events or which contests to enter and how to approach them when it comes to cash and GPPs. But thank you again for taking your time out of your day to listen to me. Have a great one. As always, be safe and make that money. Yeah.